Hana Kim woke up in darkness. Her head pounded like someone had hit her with a metal pipe. The last thing she remembered was working on the engine of the diplomatic transport ship when alarms started screaming. Pirates had attacked their convoy, near the Nexus trading station. She tried to move, but chains held her wrists to a cold metal wall. The air smelled wrong, too clean, with a sharp chemical taste that made her nose burn. Slowly, her eyes got used to the dim light coming from strips along the ceiling. The cell was small, maybe 10 feet square. The walls looked like they were made from some kind of alien metal that glowed faintly blue. She was not alone. 3 other humans sat chained to the opposite wall. She recognized one of them, her younger brother Jiho. "Jiho," she called out, her voice rough and scratchy. He looked up, relief flooding his face. "Hana, thank God you're alive. I thought they killed you when you fought back during the attack." The other 2 humans introduced themselves. Yuna Song was a tech specialist who had been working on the ship's computer systems. Daeho Lim was an older man, a security guard who looked like he had seen many fights in his life. His left arm hung at a strange angle, probably broken. "Where are we?" Hana asked, testing the strength of her chains. They were solid, made from the same alien metal as the walls. "Some kind of prison," Daeho said grimly. "Been here for about 6 hours. Guards came by once, ugly lizard things walking on 2 legs. They just looked at us and left." Before anyone could say more, a door slid open with a soft hiss. Light poured in, making them all squint. 3 figures entered. The first was tall and walked upright like a human, but its skin was covered in dark green scales. Its head was long and narrow, with yellow eyes that had no pupils. The other 2 were shorter, with hard shell-like skin and 4 arms each. The lizard creature spoke in perfect English, though its voice had a strange hissing quality. "Greetings, humans. I am Sekthar of the Vex. You have been acquired for a special purpose." "Acquired?" Hana stood up as much as her chains allowed. "You mean kidnapped?" Sekthar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Such spirit. Good. That will make the games more interesting." He gestured to one of his companions who held a glowing tablet. "Your species has become quite the curiosity since you joined the galactic community. So primitive. Yet you claim to be intelligent. What do you want with us?" Jiho asked. "Entertainment," Sekthar replied. "The Nexus has many wealthy visitors who enjoy wagering on various outcomes. Combat sports are especially popular. Your sister will provide both." Hana felt ice in her stomach. "What kind of combat?" "The Arena of Fates. 7 challenges over 7 days. If she survives all 7, you all go free. If she dies..." Sekthar shrugged. "Well, that is the most likely outcome anyway." "And if I refuse?" Hana asked. Sekthar's yellow eyes fixed on her brother. "Then we start with him. The Korth find human screams quite musical." The shell-covered aliens clicked their mandibles in what was clearly amusement. Hana realized she had no choice. "Fine, but I want to see my brother before each fight, to know he's still alive." Reasonable. Motivation is important for good performance. Sekthar turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, you should know. The current betting odds are 3,000 to 1 against your survival. Most species consider humans to be weak, slow, and stupid. I have wagered considerable money on this assessment being correct." After they left, the cell fell silent except for the soft hum of alien machinery. Finally, Jiho spoke. "Hana, you don't have to do this. We can find another way." "Like what?" she asked. "We're prisoners on an alien space station, surrounded by who knows how many different species that apparently think humans are worthless." Yuna leaned forward. "Maybe that's an advantage." "How?" "If they think we're weak and stupid, they won't expect much. They'll underestimate you." Daeho nodded slowly. "She's right. I've seen fighters who were so confident they got sloppy. Overconfidence kills." Hana sat back down, her mind already working. She was an engineer. Her job was solving problems with limited resources. This was just another problem, even if the stakes were life and death. "Tell me everything you noticed about this place," she said. "The guards, the walls, the air systems, anything." For the next few hours, they shared observations. The walls were not just metal. They had thin lines running through them that pulsed with faint light, probably power conduits or data cables. The air came through small vents near the ceiling, and it had that chemical smell because it was artificially filtered. The guards had come by 3 times, always the same pattern. 2 of the shell creatures, armed with energy weapons that looked like they could cut through steel. They never spoke, just looked at the prisoners and left. "The door mechanism is interesting," Yuna said. "It slides straight up into the ceiling. That means there's a motor and track system above us. And the chains are attached to the wall with some kind of magnetic lock," Daeho added. "I felt it vibrate when the door opened, probably connected to the same system." Hana smiled for the first time since waking up. "So the whole security system runs on their power grid." "Yeah, but how does that help?" Jiho asked. "Every system has weaknesses. I just need to find them." The door opened again. This time, Sekthar came alone. "Time. For the first challenge, human. Your audience awaits." As the chains released from the wall, Hana stood and looked at her brother. "I'll see you tonight." Sekthar led her through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The Nexus was huge, more like a small city than a space station. They passed dozens of different aliens. Some looked almost human, others were so strange, she could not even guess what planet they came from. Finally, they reached a massive circular room. The walls rose up around an arena floor made of dark sand. Thousands of aliens filled seats that went up so high she could barely see the top. The noise was incredible. Roars, clicks, whistles, and sounds she had no words for. "Behold," Sekthar announced as they entered through a gate in the arena wall, "the human female who thinks she can survive 7 challenges." The crowd erupted in what was clearly laughter and mockery. Hana looked around at all the alien faces staring down at her. Some had fur, others had scales or shells. A few seemed to be made of energy or gas rather than solid matter. But they all had one thing in common. They were looking at her like she was already dead. "Your first opponent approaches," Sekthar said, backing toward the gate. "Try to make it interesting." Across the arena, another gate opened. What came out made Hana's blood run cold. It was one of the shell creatures like the guards, but bigger, much bigger. It stood 8 feet tall, and its 4 arms each held a different weapon. Its mandibles clicked as it saw her, and it started moving forward with surprising speed. The crowd cheered as the gate slammed shut behind Sekthar. Hana was alone in the arena with a creature that could probably tear her apart with its bare hands. But as she watched it approach, she noticed something important. It was confident. Too confident. It was not even bothering to guard itself properly. Hana smiled and started looking for anything she could use as a weapon. The real fight was about to begin. The 4th warrior moved across the arena sand like a hunting spider. Its 4 arms held different weapons: a curved blade, an energy club that sparked with electricity, a net made of sharp wire, and something that looked like a gun, but fired spikes instead of bullets. Hana backed toward the arena wall, her eyes scanning everything around her. The sand was not just sand. It had metal particles mixed in that caught the light. The walls were covered in panels that glowed softly, some kind of force field generators, probably to keep fighters from escaping. The crowd was getting louder. She could hear aliens making clicking sounds, roars, and whistles. Many were probably placing last-minute bets on how quickly she would die. The Korth stopped about 20 feet away and raised its energy club. It made a series of rapid clicking sounds that were clearly meant to be threatening. Then it charged. Hana dove to the side just as the club came down where her head had been. The sand exploded in a shower of sparks and molten glass. The energy weapon was incredibly powerful. She rolled and came up running, but the Korth was faster than she expected. Its net came flying toward her. She dropped flat and the wire mesh passed over her head, but now the creature was right on top of her. The curved blade whistled down. Hana rolled again, feeling the weapon bite into the sand inches from her face. She kept rolling as the spike gun fired, sending sharp metal darts through the air where she had been. The crowd was going wild. They loved seeing the human run and dodge like a frightened animal. But Hana was not panicking. She was learning. The Korth was strong and fast, but it was also predictable. It used its weapons in the same order every time. Energy club, net, blade, spike gun, then repeat. It was used to fighting opponents who would stand and trade blows with it. More importantly, every time it used the energy club, it had to plant its feet firmly in the sand. And every time it did that, the metal particles in the sand glowed a little brighter. Hana ran toward the center of the arena, the Korth chasing behind her. The crowd thought she was running in panic, but she was actually looking for something specific. There, about 30 feet from the wall, she could see a section of sand that had a slightly different color. She stopped suddenly and spun to face the Korth. The creature was surprised by her sudden change in behavior. It slowed down, trying to figure out what she was planning. "Come on, ugly," Hana called out. "You want to kill me? Come and try." The Korth let out a screech of anger and raised its energy club high. It charged forward and brought the weapon down, with all its strength. Just as its feet hit the spot Hana had chosen, she threw herself backward. The energy club smashed into the sand, sending sparks everywhere. But this time was different. This time, the entire section of arena floor lit up like lightning. The Korth screamed as electricity ran through its body. Its shell, which was great. Protection against physical attacks, was also an excellent conductor. The current that ran through the sand was meant to power the arena's systems. But when the creature's energy weapon touched it in just the right spot, it had created a perfect circuit. The alien warrior collapsed, smoke rising from its shell. It was not dead, but it was not getting up anytime soon. The arena fell completely silent. Thousands of aliens stared down at the human female who had just defeated a Korth warrior without even touching it. Then the noise started. Some aliens were screaming in anger. They had lost money betting against her. Others were cheering. They had won big by betting on the impossible. But most were just confused. How had a primitive human figured out something about their own arena that the Korth warrior had not known? Sekthar appeared at the gate, his yellow eyes narrow with suspicion. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. 2 medical robots entered and carried the unconscious Korth away. Hana walked toward the gate, trying to look calm even though her heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. "How did you know about the power conduits?" Sekthar asked as they left the arena. "Lucky guess," Hana lied. "I think not. You studied the arena while the Korth was posturing. You were looking for something specific." He paused. Perhaps the betting odds were inaccurate. As they walked back through the corridors, Hana noticed more aliens watching her. Word was already spreading about the human who had won her first challenge. Some looked impressed. Others looked worried. They returned to the cell where Jiho, Yuna, and Diho were waiting anxiously. When they saw her walk in unharmed, relief flooded their faces. "You did it," Jiho said, hardly believing it. "1 down, 6 to go," Hana replied, but she was smiling. After Sekthar left, she told them everything that had happened. Yuna was especially interested in the power conduits under the arena floor. "If the arena has that kind of electrical system, the whole station probably runs on similar technology," she said. "That could be useful to know." Deho was more practical. "What kind of weapons did the Korth have? What should we expect next? Time?" "Energy weapons. mostly. But they're predictable. They rely too much on their natural advantages and not enough on tactics. That's good, Deho said. Overconfident enemies make mistakes. A few hours later, guards brought food. It was not exactly human food, but it was edible. Some kind of protein paste, and a liquid that tasted like metal, but seemed to have vitamins in it. The betting odds have changed, one of the guards said in broken English. It was the first time any of them had spoken to the prisoners. Now 2,000 to 1 against human survival. After the guards left, Jiho shook his head. They still think you're going to lose. Good, Hana said. Let them keep thinking that. But the odds are still terrible. Even if some aliens are starting to bet on you, most still think you don't have a chance. Yuna leaned forward. That's because they're thinking about this wrong. They're betting on whether a human can beat their challenges. But Hana's not trying to beat the challenges the way they expect. What do you mean? Daeho asked. She's an engineer, Yuna explained. Engineers don't just look at problems, they look at systems. The arena isn't just a fighting space, it's a machine. And every machine can be hacked if you understand how it works. Hana nodded. Exactly. These aliens have been running these games for who knows how long. They think they know all the variables, but they don't understand humans. What don't they understand? Jiho asked. That we don't fight fair when our families are threatened. The next morning, Sekthar returned with more guards. As they unlocked Hana's chains, he studied her face carefully. Today's challenge will be different, he said. The betting pools have grown considerably overnight. Many aliens want to see if yesterday was luck or skill. What kind of challenge? Hana asked. Survival. You will be placed in a biodome filled with creatures from various worlds. You must survive for 24 hours. Most contestants try to hide. That usually works for a few hours before the hunters find them. As they walked toward the new arena, Hana could hear different sounds from yesterday. Instead of the roar of a crowd, there were quieter sounds, rustling, chittering, and distant roars that made her skin crawl. One more thing, Sekthar said as they approached a different gate. These creatures have not been fed for 3 days. They will be very hungry. The gate opened to reveal what looked like a small forest. Trees, bushes, and plants from dozens of different worlds created a landscape that was both beautiful and terrifying. The air was thick and humid, filled with the sounds of hidden creatures. 24 hours, Sekthar repeated. Try not to die too quickly. The audience gets bored. The gate slammed shut behind her. Hana was alone in an alien wilderness filled with predators that wanted to eat her. But she was not afraid. She was already planning. After all, her brother had taught her a lot about alien biology over the years, and she was about to put that knowledge to very good use. The biodome was huge, maybe 2 miles across. Hana could see the curved ceiling far above, designed to look like a sky, but clearly artificial. The plants around her came from many different worlds. Some had leaves that glowed softly. Others had thorns that moved on their own, and a few seemed to be watching her with what looked like eyes. She moved carefully through the alien forest, staying low and trying to make as little noise as possible. Every few seconds, she heard sounds that made her heart race. Something large crashed through the bushes to her left. Strange calls echoed from the treetops. In the distance, she heard what sounded like a hunting pack making coordinated signals. Jiho had taught her that most predators followed certain patterns, no matter what planet they came from. They hunted using sight, sound, smell, or heat. Some used special senses that humans did not have, but the basic rules were usually the same. Find food. Avoid becoming food. The first rule of survival was to find water. She could hear running water somewhere ahead, so she moved toward the sound. But as she got closer, she heard something else. Heavy breathing and the sound of something drinking. Hana crept up to the edge of a clearing where a small stream ran over smooth rocks. At the water's edge stood the largest creature she had ever seen. It was like a cross between a bear and a lizard, covered in thick scales and standing nearly 10 feet tall. Its massive head was lowered to drink, but its ears kept swiveling to listen for danger. She was about to back away when she noticed something important. The creature's feet had only 3 toes, and the middle toe on its right front foot was missing. Old injury. That meant it would favor its left side when it turned, and it would be slightly off balance. More importantly, she could see scars on its hide that showed it had fought other predators many times. This was an apex predator, the thing that everything else in the dome was afraid of, which gave her an idea. Hana picked up a small rock and threw it into the bushes on the far side of the clearing. The creature's head snapped up immediately, water dripping from its jaws. It listened for a moment, then started moving toward the sound. As soon as it was out of sight, Hana ran to the stream and drank as much water as she could. She also grabbed several smooth rocks that would make good weapons. Then she followed the creature's tracks, staying well behind it. The plan was simple. Every ecosystem had a balance. If she could figure out what else lived in this dome and how they related to each other, she might be able to survive without fighting anything directly. The big creature's tracks led to a section of the forest where the trees were much taller. As Hana followed, she started noticing other signs, deep claw marks on tree trunks, about 15 feet off the ground. Something with wings lived up there, something with very sharp claws. She also found tracks from smaller creatures, 4-legged things about the size of dogs, but with too many teeth. Pack hunters, based on the way their tracks were grouped together. Just as she was starting to understand the dome's ecosystem, she heard voices, not animal sounds, actual voices speaking in alien languages. She climbed carefully up a tree with low branches and looked out over the forest. There was another clearing about a quarter-mile away, and in it stood a group of aliens watching screens that showed different parts of the dome, guards and monitors. They were tracking everything that happened inside, but more interesting were the small flying objects that buzzed through the forest like metal insects, camera drones. The audience outside could watch everything she did, which meant they could also see what the predators were doing. Hana climbed higher to get a better view of the dome layout. From up here, she could see the stream wound through several clearings before ending in a small lake at the far end. The flying creatures lived in the tall trees near the middle. The pack hunters seemed to stay near the rocky areas on the sides, and everywhere, the camera drones buzzed around recording everything. As the hours passed, Hana started to understand how the hunts usually went. Most contestants would try to find a hiding place and wait it out. But the creatures knew all the good hiding spots. Eventually, the prey would be found and the hunt would end. But Hana was not trying to hide. She was learning. She followed the stream toward the lake, moving carefully and watching everything. The flying creatures, she had started thinking of them as sky hunters, seemed to be most active during certain times. They would fly in coordinated groups, searching for prey, then return to their nests to rest. The pack hunters were smarter. They worked together to drive prey toward ambush points, but they relied on their victims running in panic. The big creature, the apex predator, seemed to hunt alone. It was strong enough to take down anything else in the dome, but it was also lazy. It only hunted when it was hungry, and it preferred easy targets. As night fell, the dome's artificial lighting dimmed to simulate darkness, Hana put her plan into action. She had found a spot near the lake where several animal trails crossed. It was the kind of place where different creatures came to drink, which meant it was also where predators liked to wait for them. Using sharp rocks and strong vines from the alien plants, she built a series of simple traps, not to catch the predators. That would be impossible. But to make noise and confusion at exactly the right moment. Then she waited. Around midnight, the pack hunters arrived, 6 of them, moving in formation like wolves. They set up around the crossing, ready to ambush anything that came to drink. An hour later, one of the sky hunters flew overhead, looking for prey that might be out in the open, and just before dawn, the apex predator came down to the lake to drink. That was when Hana triggered her traps. The noise was incredible. Rocks fell, branches snapped, and several of the camera drones were knocked out of the air by swinging vines. The pack hunters jumped up in alarm, thinking they were under attack. The sky hunter dove down to investigate, its sharp claws extended, and the apex predator, woken from its peaceful drink, roared in anger and charged toward the noise. What happened next was not really a fight. It was chaos. The pack hunters scattered as the apex predator crashed through their ambush. The sky hunter, caught in the middle, tried to escape, but got caught up in the confusion. By the time it was over, 2 of the pack hunters were dead. The sky hunter was badly injured and hiding in the trees, and the apex predator was stalking around, looking for whatever had disturbed its drink. Hana, meanwhile, was safely hidden on the other side of the lake, watching through the gaps in the alien foliage. She had not killed any of the predators herself. She had just made them fight each other. As the sun came up, the dome's lights grew brighter. She could see aliens in the monitoring station pointing at their screens and talking excitedly. This was not how the hunt usually went. The remaining hours passed quietly. The surviving pack hunters were too nervous to hunt effectively. The sky hunter stayed in its nest, nursing its wounds. The apex predator had gone back to sleep. When the 24 hours were up, the gate opened and Sekthar walked in with a squad of guards. He found Hana sitting peacefully by the stream, weaving a basket from alien plant fibers. "Remarkable," he said, looking around at the unnaturally quiet forest. "In 20 years of running these hunts, I have never seen anything like this." "Like what?" Hana asked innocently. "You turned our carefully balanced ecosystem into chaos, then survived by hiding in the chaos you created." He studied her with new interest. "The betting odds have changed again. Some aliens are starting to think you might actually survive all 7 challenges." As they walked back to the prison, Hana noticed more aliens watching her. Some looked impressed, others looked worried, a few looked angry. They had probably lost a lot of money betting against her. Back in the cell, her friends were amazed by her story. "You made the animals fight each other?" Jiho asked. "I just created a situation where their natural behaviors led to conflict," Hana explained. "Every predator thinks it's the most dangerous thing around. When they run into each other unexpectedly, they fight instead of thinking." Yuna nodded thoughtfully. "You're not just surviving these challenges. You're solving them like engineering. Problems." "That's exactly what they are," Hana said. "Complex systems with predictable behaviors. The aliens running this place think they're testing my ability to fight or hide, but really they're testing my ability to understand how their systems work." Daeho looked worried. "But they're going to figure that out eventually. They'll make the next challenges harder." "Let them," Hana said. "The more complex the system, the more ways there are to break it." Outside their cell, she could hear aliens talking in excited voices. Word was spreading throughout the Nexus. The human female was not dying as quickly as expected, which meant it was time to raise the stakes. The 3rd challenge took place in a room Hana had never seen before. Instead of an arena or forest, she found herself in a perfectly white space with no visible walls or ceiling. The floor felt solid under her feet, but everything else seemed to stretch on forever in all directions. Sekthar had been quieter than usual when he came to collect her. The betting odds had shifted dramatically overnight, now only 50-1 against her survival. Some very wealthy aliens were starting to take her seriously. "This challenge is different," he had told her. "No physical opponents, no environmental hazards. This time, you will face something much more dangerous." Now, standing in the white void, Hana understood what he meant. A figure materialized in front of her. At first, it looked human, a tall man in his 30s with kind eyes and a gentle smile. But as she watched, the figure became translucent, like it was made of colored light instead of flesh. "Hello, Hana," it said in a voice that seemed to come from inside her own head. "I am Nexion of the Zephyrians. I will be your opponent today." "What kind of challenge is this?" she asked. "A test of mind rather than body. I am a telepathic being. My kind feeds on emotional energy, fear, despair, anger, pain. The challenge is simple. I will enter your thoughts and explore your memories. If you can resist me for 1 hour, you win. If your mind breaks under the strain..." He shrugged. "Well, that has been the outcome for every contestant so far." Hana felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. "And if I refuse? Then your brother dies immediately, and you face this challenge anyway." The Zephyrian moved closer, and Hana could feel something pressing against her thoughts. It was like having someone else's fingers poking around inside her brain. "Relax," Nexion said softly. "Fighting will only make it more painful. Let me see what fears drive you. What memories cause you the most pain?" The white space around them began to change. Suddenly, Hana was standing in her childhood home on Earth. She was 8 years old again, watching her parents fight in the next room. She could hear her mother crying, her father shouting about money and work and everything going wrong. "Ah," Nexion said, his voice full of satisfaction. "Family dysfunction. The fear that you are not good enough, that everyone you love will eventually leave you. Very common among humans." The scene shifted. Now she was 16, watching her father walk out the door for the last time. Her mother was holding baby Jiho, tears streaming down her face. Young Hana had promised herself that day that she would never let her family fall apart again. "Excellent," the Zephyrian whispered. "The weight of responsibility, the fear that you will fail those who depend on you, just as your father failed your family." But as Nexion dug deeper into her memories, something unexpected happened. Instead of finding more fear and pain, he found something else entirely. He found anger. And the scene changed again. Hana was 25, working her first job as an engineer on a space station. A supervisor had told her that humans were too primitive to understand advanced technology, that she should stick to simple maintenance work. She had proven him wrong. By redesigning their entire power distribution system, making it 30% more efficient. "Interesting," Nexion said, but his voice was less confident now. "You use anger as motivation rather than letting it control you." More memories flowed past. Every time someone had told her she was not smart enough, not strong enough, not good enough. Every time she had proven them wrong. Every challenge she had faced and overcome. The Zephyrian was starting to look uncomfortable. "This is unusual. Most beings focus on their failures and regrets. You seem to draw strength from yours." "You're reading my memories wrong," Hana said calmly. "You're looking for weakness, but you're finding the things that made me strong." Nexion tried a different approach. The white space became the pirate attack on their ship. Hana watched herself fighting desperately to protect the engine room, while explosions tore through the corridors around her. She saw Jiho being dragged away by alien pirates while she was knocked unconscious. "Here," the Zephyrian said with renewed confidence. "Your greatest failure. You could not protect your brother when he needed you most." But instead of despair, the memory filled Hana with fierce determination. "You're right. I failed to protect him then. That's why I'm going to succeed now." "You cannot succeed." Nexion's form began to flicker with agitation. "The challenges are designed to be impossible. You are just one small human against forces beyond your comprehension." "Maybe," Hana said, "but I'm the human who's going to try anyway." The Zephyrian tried again, showing her visions of what might happen if she failed, Jiho and the others dying horribly while aliens laughed. Her own death broadcast to billions of beings who would see it as proof that humans were worthless. But every vision of failure only made Hana more determined to succeed. "This is impossible," Nexian said, his glowing form starting to flicker more, rapidly. "Your mind should be breaking under the strain. You should be collapsing into despair." "Why?" Hana asked. "Because that's what other species do?" She took a step toward the Zephyrian, and for the first time, he backed away. "Here's the thing about humans," she continued. "We're not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest species in the galaxy, but we have something you don't understand." "What?" Nexion asked, but his voice was now uncertain. "We're stubborn. Incredibly, impossibly stubborn. When someone tells us we can't do something, our first instinct is to prove them wrong. When someone threatens our family, we don't give up. We get angry. And angry humans are dangerous." The white space began to flicker and change as Nexion lost control of the illusion. Hana could see the real room now, a simple chamber with monitoring equipment around the walls. The Zephyrian was connected to machines that were measuring her brain activity. "You want to see human emotion?" Hana asked, taking another step forward. "Let me show you what we feel when someone threatens the people we love." She thought about Jiho, chained to a wall in a cell, depending on her to save him. She thought about Yuna and Deho, caught up in this nightmare because they had been on the wrong ship at the wrong time. She thought about all the other beings who had died in this arena for the entertainment of aliens who thought life was a game. The fury that filled her mind was like nothing Nexion had ever experienced. Human anger was not the cold, calculating emotion he was used to from other species. It was hot and fierce and absolutely ruthless. The Zephyrian screamed and staggered backward, his energy form flickering wildly. "Stop! You're overloading my neural pathways! Then get out of my head!" Hana said coldly. Nexion tried to break the mental connection, but something was wrong. The link that allowed him to read her thoughts also worked in reverse. Hana's emotions were flooding into his mind, and his telepathic abilities made him experience them as if they were his own. For a creature that fed on fear and despair, being filled with human determination and protective rage was like being poisoned. "I cannot. The intensity is too much." Nexion collapsed to his knees, his form becoming so faint it was barely visible. "This is what humans feel," Hana said, standing over the fallen alien. "This is why we don't give up. This is why we fight. Impossible odds, and sometimes win." The hour was not up yet, but Nexion was finished. He crawled toward the exit, his energy form flickering like a dying light. "No more," he whispered. "I submit. The human wins." The door opened, and Sekthar entered, with his guards. He looked at the nearly unconscious Zephyrian with amazement. "In 50 years of telepathic challenges, I have never seen a contestant defeat a Zephyrian," he said. "How is this possible?" "He was expecting fear," Hana replied. "Instead, he found something his species can't handle, which is hope." As they walked back to the prison, Sekthar was unusually quiet. Finally, he spoke. "The betting odds have changed again. 10-1 against your survival. Some aliens are starting to think you might actually make it through all 7 challenges." "What do you think?" Hana asked. Sekthar was quiet for a long moment. "I think we may have underestimated your species." Back in the cell, Hana's friends could hardly believe what had happened. "You broke a telepathic alien just by being angry?" Yuna asked. "Not angry," Hana corrected. "Determined. There's a difference. Anger burns out quickly. Determination lasts as long as you need it to." Jiho shook his head in amazement. 3 challenges down, 4 to go. "But they're going to be harder now," Deho warned. "They know you're not just getting lucky," Hana nodded. "Which means it's time to stop thinking about just surviving the challenges." "What do you mean?" Yuna asked. "I mean it's time to start thinking about escaping." Outside their cell, the Nexus was buzzing with activity. Word had spread about the human who had defeated a Zephyrian in mental combat. Betting pools were growing, larger by the hour. Some aliens were starting to think the impossible might actually happen. Others were starting to worry about what that might mean. And in the deepest levels of the station, plans were being made to ensure that one troublesome human would not upset the natural order of things. The fourth challenge was clearly designed to kill her. Hana stood at the entrance to what looked like a massive mechanical puzzle. The room was enormous, filled with moving platforms, spinning blades, laser grids, and crushing pistons. Everything was in constant motion, creating a deadly maze that changed every few seconds. "This is the Labyrinth of Keth," Sekthar explained as they watched the mechanical death trap operate. "It was built by the mechanists of Vega Prime. They were obsessed with creating perfect killing machines." "How many contestants have survived it?" Hana asked, though she already knew the answer. "None. 47 have tried over the past 10 years. The longest anyone lasted was 12 minutes. And how long do I have to survive?" 1 hour, and you must reach the center of the labyrinth to claim the victory token." Sekthar pointed to a glowing crystal visible far in the distance, surrounded by the most dangerous-looking mechanisms. "Of course, reaching the center is only half the challenge. You must also make it back out alive." Hana studied the maze carefully. The movements were not random. There was a pattern. The mechanists had built it like a giant clock, with different sections operating on different cycles. If she could figure out the timing... "The betting odds are now 5-1 against your survival," Sekthar continued. "Many aliens think this challenge will finally stop your unusual string of victories." As the entrance gate opened, Hana noticed something else. Small floating cameras followed her into the maze, but they stayed well back from the moving parts. Even the monitoring drones were afraid of this place. The first section was relatively simple, a pathway lined with spinning blades that moved in a predictable pattern. Hana timed their rotation and darted through during the brief gaps when the way was clear. The second section was harder. Platforms rose and fell from the floor, creating a constantly changing pathway across a pit filled with spikes. But again, there was a pattern. The platforms moved in groups of 3, with each group operating on a different cycle. As she jumped from platform to platform, Hana started to understand how the mechanists thought. They built their machines to be perfect, which meant they were also perfectly predictable. The third section nearly killed her. Laser beams swept back and forth across the pathway in random patterns. But as she watched carefully, she realized they were not truly random. They were responding to movement sensors. The lasers tracked anything that moved too quickly, so she moved very slowly, taking tiny steps and pausing whenever a laser beam came close. It took 15 minutes to cross a 50-foot section, but she made it without being fried. The center of the labyrinth was a circular chamber with the victory token floating in the middle. But surrounding it were 4 massive mechanical guardians, robotic creatures with multiple arms, each holding different weapons. As soon as Hana entered the chamber, the guardians activated. They moved toward her with mechanical precision, their weapons spinning and crackling with energy. But Hana had noticed something important about the labyrinth. All the mechanisms were connected to a central control system. Power conduits ran through the walls. Data cables connected different sections, and everything operated according to a master timing program. Instead of trying to fight the Guardians, she ran toward the nearest wall panel. Using a sharp piece of metal she had picked up from an earlier section, she pried open the access cover. Inside was exactly what she had hoped to find, a maintenance interface. The Guardians were closing in as Hana worked frantically to understand the alien control system. It was more complex than anything she had worked on before, but the basic principles were the same. Power distribution, timing circuits, safety protocols. There. She found the master control node and began rerouting commands. The Guardians stopped. moving just as the closest one was about to slice her in half with a spinning blade. But Hana was not finished. She had figured out something that even the mechanists had not considered. Their perfect killing machine had one major flaw. It was too perfect. Every system was connected to every other system for maximum efficiency, which meant that if you knew how to access the right controls, you could reprogram the entire labyrinth. Hana's fingers flew over the alien interface as she rewrote the maze's operating parameters. Instead of trying to kill anything that entered, the mechanisms would now work together to create a safe pathway. She grabbed the victory token and ran back toward the entrance. Behind her, the labyrinth began to change. Spinning blades retracted into the walls. Crushing pistons stopped moving. Laser grids shut down. The platforms in the second section now formed a stable bridge across the pit. The spinning blades in the first section had stopped completely. Hana walked calmly out of the labyrinth in less than 5 minutes. The monitoring station was in chaos. Aliens were shouting at each other in a dozen different languages, pointing at screens that showed the impossible. Their deadliest challenge had been completely disabled. Sekthar was waiting at the exit with a squad of guards. His yellow eyes were narrow with anger and something else. Respect. "Explain," he demanded. "The mechanists built their maze to be perfect," Hana said. "But perfection means predictability. And predictable systems can be hacked if you understand the underlying principles. You reprogrammed a mechanist death trap in under 30 minutes? I had good teachers," Hana replied, thinking of all the engineering courses she had taken, all the systems she had learned to repair and improve. "This changes things," Sekthar said as they walked back toward the prison. "Word is spreading throughout the Nexus. Aliens who have never shown interest in the arena are coming to watch your next challenge." "Good or bad?" Hana asked. "Both. Your supporters are growing more confident, but your enemies are getting desperate." As they entered the prison area, Hana noticed more guards than usual, and not just the regular Korth security forces. There were aliens from several different species, all armed and watching her carefully. "Expecting trouble?" she asked. "The betting pools have reached unprecedented levels," Sekthar explained. "Some very powerful beings have wagered enormous sums on your death. If you survive all 7 challenges, they will lose more money than most planets produce in a year, and they're not happy about that. They are discussing ways to influence the outcome of the remaining challenges." Back in the cell, Hana's friends were amazed by her latest victory. "You reprogrammed an alien death maze?" Yuna asked. "How is that even possible?" "Engineering principles are the same everywhere," Hana explained. "Energy, matter, information. The basic laws don't change just because you're on a different planet." Jiho looked worried. "But if powerful aliens are betting against you, they might try to change the rules." "Let them try," Hana said. "But while they're focused on the challenges, I've been working on something else." "What?" Daiho asked. Hana lowered her voice. "Every time they take me to a challenge, I see more of this station. Guard positions, security systems, communication networks. This place is huge, but it follows the same basic design principles as any space station." "You're planning an escape," Yuna breathed. "Not just an escape, something better." Before she could explain further, the cell door opened. But instead of Sekthar and his guards, a different group of aliens entered. These were clearly not part of the regular arena staff. They were better armed and moved with the confidence of professional soldiers. Their leader was a tall alien with blue skin and too many eyes. When it spoke, its voice was cold and threatening. "The human comes with us. There has been a change in the challenge schedule." "What change?" Hana asked, standing up slowly. "Your next opponent has requested a private meeting before the official challenge begins tomorrow." Hana looked at her brother. Something was wrong. This was not part of the normal procedure. "I'll be back," she told Jiho quietly. "You better be." he replied. As they led her through corridors she had never seen before, Hana realized they were heading deeper into the station, away from the public areas where the challenges took place. They were taking her somewhere the cameras could not follow, which meant that whatever was about to happen, the audience would not see it. The corridor ended at a heavy door marked with symbols she could not read. The blue-skinned alien opened it and gestured for her to enter. Inside was a room that looked like a cross between a laboratory and a torture chamber. Medical equipment lined the walls, along with devices whose purpose she could only guess at. Standing in the center of the room was an alien unlike any she had seen before. It was tall and thin, with pale gray skin and large black eyes. When it turned to look at her, she felt a chill run down her spine. "Hello, human," it said in a voice like rustling leaves. "I am Dr. Vexhai of the Collectors. I have been looking forward to meeting you." "What do you want?" Hana asked. "To study you, of course. Your species has become quite interesting to certain parties. We would like to understand what makes you so resilient." "And if I refuse?" Dr. Vexhai smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp and too numerous. "Refusal is not an option. Do not worry. We will try to keep you alive during the examination, though I cannot make any promises about what condition you will be in for tomorrow's challenge." The door slammed shut behind her. Hana was trapped, with an alien scientist who wanted to dissect her to find out what made humans special. Dr. Vexhai gestured toward a table covered with restraints and scanning equipment. "Please lie down. This will be much easier if you cooperate." Hana looked around the laboratory, her mind cataloging everything she saw. Power conduits running along the ceiling, computer terminals connected to the station's main network, medical scanners that probably linked to databases throughout the galaxy. "What exactly are you planning to do?" she asked, moving closer to one of the computer terminals. "Simple biological analysis," the doctor replied, pulling on surgical gloves that had too many fingers. "Brain scans, genetic sampling, nerve response testing. Nothing that will permanently damage you." How thoughtful. "The collectors have been studying different species for centuries. We are particularly interested in psychological resilience. Your species seems to possess an unusual capacity for survival under stress." Hana pretended to stumble and caught herself against the computer terminal. As she steadied herself, her fingers quickly accessed the interface. The alien symbols were unfamiliar, but the basic structure was similar to systems she had worked with before. "Of course," Dr. Vexhai continued, "if you prove uncooperative, we have methods to ensure compliance." He pressed a button, and restraining fields activated around the examination table. "These will hold you quite securely while we work." Sure they will," Hana said, still working at the computer. "Tell me, Doctor, are all your systems connected to the station's main network?" "Of course. How else would we share our research data? Now please, lie down before I am forced to use more direct methods." Hana smiled and stepped away from the terminal. "Actually, I think I'll pass on the examination. You do not have a choice in the matter." "Sure I do. Watch this." Hana pressed a sequence of commands she had entered while pretending to steady herself. Immediately, alarms began sounding throughout the laboratory. Red lights flashed as safety protocols activated. "What have you done?" Dr. Vexhai demanded. "I accessed your research database and flagged it as containing dangerous biological contamination," Hana explained calmly. "Your own safety systems are now sealing the laboratory to prevent the spread of infection." Heavy blast doors slammed shut over the exits. Containment fields activated around the medical equipment. And most importantly, emergency broadcasts began, transmitting throughout the station, alerting everyone to the supposed biological hazard. "This is impossible," the doctor said, frantically working at his own terminal. "The containment protocols cannot be activated without proper authorization codes." "You're right. Unless someone triggers the automatic response by reporting specific genetic markers that match your database of dangerous organisms." Dr. Vexhai stared at her in disbelief. You hacked our entire research network in 30 seconds. Basic system infiltration, Hana said. You made it easy by connecting everything to the same network. No security isolation, no access controls worth mentioning. Honestly, your information security is terrible. The doctor lunged toward a communication panel, but Hana was faster. She had been moving closer while they talked, and now she grabbed a medical scanner and smashed it into the alien's head. Dr. Vexhai collapsed, unconscious. Sorry, Doc, but I have somewhere else to be. The containment protocols would keep the laboratory sealed for at least 6 hours, while automated systems searched for the non-existent biological threat. By then, Hana planned to be long gone, but first, she had work to do. She sat down at the main computer terminal and began accessing the station's databases. Her hack of the medical systems had given her entry into the network, and now she could explore everything connected to it. Security camera feeds showed her the locations of guard posts throughout the station. Personnel records revealed which aliens were loyal to the arena management and which ones might be sympathetic to prisoners. Financial databases showed the massive amounts of money being bet on her challenges. More importantly, she found the detention center schematics. Her friends were being held in Cell Block 7, along with dozens of other prisoners from various species. Most were scheduled for future arena matches, but some had been there for months or even years. Hana downloaded everything she could access, then turned her attention to the station's communication systems. If she was going to escape, she would need help, and she had an idea about where to find it. The emergency alerts about biological contamination were being broadcast throughout the Nexus, but Hana modified the transmission to include a hidden message encoded in the alert frequency patterns. Anyone monitoring the right channels would receive additional information: the locations of guard posts, shift schedules, and a detailed plan for a coordinated breakout. She just hoped there was someone out there listening who would understand what she was trying to do. 6 hours later, when the containment protocols finally deactivated, security teams found Dr. Vexhai unconscious and Hana gone. The laboratory's ventilation system had been opened, providing a route into the station's maintenance tunnels. Sekthar was furious when they brought the news to his office. How does one human female disable an entire research laboratory and disappear? Into a station with 1 million inhabitants? He demanded. She appears to have extensive knowledge of computer systems, his lieutenant reported. Dr. Vexhai's equipment was completely compromised. Find her, immediately. The 5th challenge begins in 12 hours, and we have 10,000 aliens expecting to see her fight. Sir, there's something else. The emergency broadcasts contained some kind of coded transmission. Our analysts think it might have been a message to Confederates. Sekthar's eyes narrowed. What kind of Confederates? Unknown. But there have been unusual communications detected in several sectors of the station. Meanwhile, deep in the maintenance tunnels beneath the Nexus, Hana was discovering she was not alone. She had been crawling through the cramped passages for hours, following the station schematics she had memorized. The tunnels were dark and filled with the constant hum of machinery, but they provided access to every part of the station without being detected by security. When she heard voices ahead, she almost turned back, but something about the tone made her creep closer to listen. Telling you, the human's message was clear. She's planning a breakout and she needs help. And why should we trust a message from someone we've never met? Because she's the first contestant in 20 years to win more than 2 challenges. If she can survive this long, maybe she can actually do something about this place. Hana peered around a corner and saw 3 aliens huddled around a small light. One was a furry creature, about her size with large ears and intelligent eyes. Another looked like a walking plant with vine-like arms. The third was humanoid, but covered in crystalline scales that reflected the light. "Who's there?" the furry one called out, hearing her movement. Hana stepped into the light. "Someone who could use some friends." The 3 aliens stared at her in amazement. "You're the human," the plant-like one said. The one who's been winning the arena challenges. That's me. And you are? Kip, said the furry alien. Former maintenance worker until I got caught trying to help some prisoners escape. Thornwick, said the plant creature. I was a gardener in the biodome until they decided I would make good entertainment. Zara, said the crystalline alien. Ship's navigator until my crew was captured and sold to the arena. How many others are there? Hana asked. In the tunnels? Maybe a dozen, Kip replied. But throughout the station? Hundreds of beings who would love to see this place shut down. Good, because I have a plan. For the next several hours, Hana explained what she had learned from the station's databases. The arena was just one part of a larger criminal organization that trafficked in sentient beings throughout this sector of the galaxy. But it was also the organization's primary source of income. If we can disrupt the arena permanently, we damage their entire operation, she explained. But it has to be coordinated. They have too much security for a simple jailbreak. What do you need? Zara asked. Access to the station's main computer core. If I can get there, I can reprogram their entire security system. That's in the most heavily guarded section of the station, Thornwick pointed out. I know, which is why we're going to create a distraction they can't ignore. Hana outlined her plan. It was dangerous and required precise timing, but it had one major advantage. It used the arena's own systems against them. The fifth challenge is tomorrow, she explained. They're expecting me to show up and fight whatever they've prepared. Instead, I'm going to give them a show they'll never forget. What if something goes wrong? Kip asked. Then we all die, Hana said simply. But if we do nothing, we die anyway. At least this way, we go down fighting. The three aliens looked at each other, then back at her. What do you need us to do? Zara asked. As dawn approached, the station's artificial lighting cycled to simulate planetary day and night. Hana made her way back toward the detention center. She had learned the guard schedules and knew exactly when the patrols would change, but she was not planning to return to her cell. Instead, she was going to visit some other prisoners. The arena had been operating for decades, and many of the survivors had been kept alive as backup entertainment. They were experienced fighters from dozens of different worlds, and they had been waiting for a chance to strike back at their captors. The arena was packed with more aliens than had ever attended a challenge before. Word had spread throughout the Nexus that the human female would face her most dangerous opponent yet, a team of the arena's most successful killers attacking her. Simultaneously, Sekthar stood in his private viewing box trying to hide his nervousness. They had found 23 empty cells that morning, including the ones holding the humans' companions. Security teams were searching the entire station, but so far had found nothing. Perhaps she realized she could not win and chose to die with her friends rather than face the challenge, suggested his lieutenant. No, Sekthar said, watching the arena entrance. She will come. She is too stubborn to run away. In the audience, aliens who had bet enormous sums on the human's death were getting restless. The challenge was supposed to have started an hour ago. Where is she? Demanded Overlord Kresh, a massive creature whose species ruled 3 star systems. I have wagered my entire fleet on her death today. She will be here, Sekthar promised, though he was no longer certain. Down in the arena, 6 of the most dangerous fighters in the galaxy waited impatiently. They had been chosen specifically because they worked well as a team and had never lost a group battle. The plan was simple: surround the human and kill her quickly before she could use any tricks. But as the minutes passed, it became clear that something was wrong. Maybe the human is smarter than we thought, said Gorax, a creature that looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard. Maybe she knows this is a fight she cannot win. Good, replied Vextar, an insectoid warrior with razor-sharp claws. Intelligent prey makes the hunt more interesting. They were still talking when the arena's lighting system suddenly changed. Instead of the normal bright white illumination, red emergency lights began flashing. "What is this?" Sekthar demanded, speaking into his communication device. "Why are the emergency lights active?" The answer came not from his security team, but from the arena's main display screen. The face that appeared was human, female, and smiling in a way that made Sekthar's blood run cold. "Good morning, Nexus," Hana said, her voice echoing throughout the arena. "Sorry to keep you waiting, but I've been a little busy." The crowd erupted in confused chatter. How was the human speaking to them from outside the arena? "As you can see, I'm not in the fighting pit today," Hana continued. "That's because I've decided to change the rules of the game." Sekthar was shouting orders into his communicator, but none of his security teams were responding. "You see," Hana said, "I've spent the last few weeks learning about your operation. The arena, the betting, the slavery, all of it. And I've decided it needs to stop." On the screen behind her, security camera feeds from throughout the station began displaying. The feeds showed something that made the alien audience gasp in shock. Freed prisoners were moving through the corridors in organized groups. Former gladiators who knew every inch of the station were leading escaped slaves toward strategic positions. The rebellion was not just beginning, it was already in progress. "Right now, my friends are taking control of your security systems, your power grids, and your communication networks," Hana explained. "The Nexus has been home to slavery and murder for too long. Today, that ends." Gorax and the other arena fighters looked around nervously. They were killers, not soldiers. Fighting one opponent in a controlled environment was very different from dealing with a station-wide uprising. "Guards!" Sekthar screamed. "Get to the arena! Protect the fighters!" But when the arena doors opened, it was not guards who entered. It was Jiho, Yuna, and Deho, along with dozens of other freed prisoners. They were armed with weapons taken from security posts, and they moved with the confidence of people who knew they were fighting for their freedom. "Hello, sister," Jiho called out as he led the group into the arena. "Miss us?" The 6 arena champions found themselves facing not one human, but an army of prisoners from a dozen different worlds, beings who had been kept in cages, forced to fight for entertainment, and treated like animals. The fight that followed was not really a fight at all. It was a reckoning. The arena champions were skilled killers, but they had grown lazy from years of easy victories over unwilling opponents. The freed prisoners, on the other hand, were fighting for something more important than money or entertainment. They were fighting for their lives and their freedom. Within minutes, the champions were defeated. Some surrendered, others tried to flee, and a few fought to the end. But the outcome was never in doubt. Meanwhile, throughout the station, other groups of freed prisoners were taking control of critical systems. Kip and his maintenance crew had seized the power generators. Thornwick and the other gardeners had taken the life support systems. Zara and former ship crew members had captured the docking bays. "This is impossible," Sekthar said, watching his carefully ordered world collapse around him. "How can one human organize this kind of operation?" "Because she's not just one human," said a new voice behind him. Sekthar spun around to find 2 aliens he had never seen before standing in his private viewing box. One was a tall, elegant female with blue skin and silver hair. The other was a heavily muscled male who looked like he had been in many battles. "Who are you?" Sekthar demanded. "Commander, Mira Choi of the Human Diplomatic Corps," the female replied. "And this is Sergeant Deho Lim of Human Fleet Marines." "More humans? But that's impossible. You're all supposed to be primitive savages." Mira smiled. "That's what we wanted you to think. It made it much easier to infiltrate your operation." "You see," Deho explained. "When our people started disappearing near the Nexus, we decided to investigate. It took months to figure out what was happening to them. Once we learned about the arena, we needed someone on the inside," Mira continued. "Someone who could gather intelligence and organize a resistance." Hana volunteered for the mission. Sekthar's mind reeled. You mean the entire time? The entire time she was a human fleet intelligence operative, Mira confirmed, though I admit we didn't expect her to be quite so dramatic in her approach. On the arena floor, Hana had joined. Her brother and friends. The 6 champions were defeated, and the crowd was in panic as they realized the slaves had taken over the asylum. Attention, citizens of the Nexus, Hana announced over the communication system. The arena is now under new management. All prisoners are free to leave. All guards who surrender will be treated fairly. All owners and operators of this facility will be handed over to galactic authorities. But first, she added, her voice turning cold, we need to settle some debts. She gestured toward the private viewing boxes where the wealthiest aliens sat. Many of them had wagered fortunes on her death and the deaths of countless other beings. You bet on our lives like we were animals, she said. You treated sentient beings as entertainment. You profited from suffering and death. Security forces loyal to the rebellion were already moving into the viewing areas, arresting the crime bosses and their associates. The good news is, some of you bet on me to survive. Those debts will be honored. The bad news is, the money you lose will be used to help the beings you enslaved. Overlord Kresh tried to flee, but was stopped by Thornwick, whose vine-like arms were surprisingly strong. Where do you think you're going? The plant creature asked pleasantly. The show isn't over yet. By evening, the Nexus was under complete control of the rebellion. The criminal organization that had operated the arena for decades was dismantled. Hundreds of prisoners were free, and word was spreading throughout the galaxy that the infamous Arena of Fates had been destroyed by its own victims. In what had once been Sekthar's office, Hana sat with her team, planning the next phase of their operation. The Nexus was just one facility, Mira explained. Our intelligence suggests there are at least a dozen others operating in different sectors. Then we'll shut them down too, Hana said simply. All of them? Yuna asked. Every single one. We've proven that these operations can be stopped. Now we just need to scale up the approach. Jiho looked at his sister with a mixture of pride and concern. You realize this means war with some very powerful criminal organizations? Good, Hana replied. It's about time someone declared war on them. Outside the office windows, the Nexus continued its normal operations. Ships came and went, traders conducted business, and travelers moved through the corridors. But everything had changed. The arena was gone. The prisoners were free. And throughout the galaxy, beings who had given up hope were hearing a message that changed everything. Humans had come to the stars, and they did not like what they found, but they were going to fix it, whether the galaxy was ready or not. 3 months later, the Galactic Council chambers on Centauri Prime were in chaos. Representatives from hundreds of species argued, shouted, and threatened each other in a dozen different languages. The topic that had caused such disorder was simple: what to do about the humans. Ambassador Mira Choi sat calmly at the human delegation table, watching alien politicians panic. Behind her stood Hana Kim, now officially titled Special Advisor on Criminal Organizations, though most beings simply called her the Arena Breaker. The humans have destroyed a legitimate business enterprise, screeched Senator Vexcole, whose species had made considerable profits from the slave trade. They had no authority to interfere with internal Nexus affairs. Legitimate? Mira stood up slowly, her voice carrying clearly through the massive chamber. Senator, are you seriously arguing that enslaving sentient beings for entertainment is legitimate? The arena operated within established commercial law, Vexcole insisted. The participants were legally acquired property. A murmur of agreement came from several sections of the chamber. Many species had built their economies on the concept that some beings were naturally inferior to others. I see, Mira said. And I suppose the fact that your family owns 12 similar facilities throughout the galaxy is just a coincidence? The chamber fell silent. Vexicol's skin turned a darker shade of purple, which in his species indicated extreme anger or fear. How dare you make such accusations without proof? Hana stepped forward and activated a holographic display. Financial records, communication logs, and security footage from dozens of facilities appeared in the air above the chamber floor. 3 months of investigation, she said simply. We've been busy. The evidence was overwhelming. A network of criminal organizations spanning multiple star systems, all connected through complex financial arrangements. Hundreds of facilities where sentient beings were bought, sold, and forced to fight for entertainment, and at the center of it all, some of the most respected members of the Galactic Council. This is outrageous. Senator Kresh stood up, his massive form towering over the other delegates. You cannot simply accuse sitting council members of criminal activity. Actually, we can, said a new voice from the chamber entrance. Chancellor Zephyr, the council's highest-ranking official, entered. With a squad of